We're live now, I believe, Mr. Acting Warden.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, members of County Council, members of the public and staff. Welcome to the 21st of June meeting this morning. Before we call to order, Madam Clerk will present a motion appointing me Acting Warden. Madam Clerk.
It's moved by Councillor Byveld, seconded by Councillor Smith, that Lyle Warden be appointed Chair of the County Council meeting held on this date, June 21st, 2021.
All those in favor? Motion is carried. Call the meeting to order by a resolution.
It's moved by Councillor McGillis, seconded by Councillor Williams, that the meeting of the Council of the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry be hereby called to order.
All those in favor? Motion is carried. Madam Clerk, could you please do a roll call?
Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Byveld.
Present.
Councillor Fraser.
Present.
Councillor Gardner.
Present.
Alternate Jaworski. Councillor Laundrie.
Present.
Councillor McDonald.
Present.
Councillor McGillis.
Present.
Councillor Smith.
Present.
Acting Warden.
Present.
Councillor Wirt.
Present.
Councillor Williams.
Present.
Great, thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Adoption of the agenda. Are there any additions, delegations, or amendments? Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Acting Warden. I would like to add a resolution, if I may, on the acknowledgement of Pride Month across SDG.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, where will we add that in the agenda?
Through you, Mr. Acting Warden, we can add that to motions and notices of motions. I have something prepared for that.
Okay, thank you very much. So that'll be under item 12, everyone. We'll add that later on in the meeting. Thank you very much, Councillor Williams.
And the motion, the motion to approve. It's read by, actually it's moved by Councillor Wirt and seconded by Councillor Smith that Council approve the agenda as amended.
All those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 3, are there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 4, adoption of minutes.
Moved by Councillor McDonald, seconded by Councillor Fraser, that the minutes of the meetings, including the in-camera minutes of the Council of the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry, held May 17th, May 19th, June 7th, and June 11th, 2021, be adopted as circulated.
All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 5, delegations. We have a staff recognition awards. I'll hand this over to you, Tim, CAO.
Yep, thank you, Acting Warden. This is something that we've done every year since 2013, and unfortunately, this is our second year in a row where we've had to do things virtually. Normally, we would gather everybody in the chambers and have, a 20-minute or 30-minute ceremony to recognize our 3 service award winners, as well as retirees and long service award winners. So in lieu of that, like we did last year, our Todd, our communications person, has created just a very short, it's about 3 to 4 minute video recognizing the awards. So without further ado, I'll ask Mike or Todd to roll the video, if I might, Mr. Warden.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. Hi everybody, and welcome to our 2021 Staff Awards Ceremony. This is something we've been doing on an annual basis since 2013. There's 3 components of it. There's the Staff Awards, there's the Long Service to our 2021 Staff Retiree Awards. So it's been a very difficult year, as everybody knows, due to the pandemic, and I'm very appreciative of all our staff that have risen to the challenge this year and done a great job. So our 3 winners this year exemplify service to the county and the citizens that live here. So without further ado, we'll get started, and congratulations to not only our retirees, our long service award winners, and our 3 service award winners, but thank you to all county staff for their hard work and perseverance over a very difficult year. Thank you.
Yeah, honored to be here to congratulate Dana on behalf of his, because of his award. I've been working with Dana for about 12 years now, and I can tell you that he is a guy who really tries to integrate technology into his work in every way possible, and certainly that expertise has benefited us as a department for the past year, in particular with the pandemic and the need to improve and change some of those protocols. So well-deserved award for Dana. It's long overdue, quite frankly, and wish him the best and congratulations.
I'm very pleased to be able to talk about Rachel's winning the customer service award this year. She won again. She won last year as well. So her excellent customer service skills are being recognized. It was very interesting that this year she was nominated by colleagues in the IT department. I do believe that any department in this building could have nominated Rachel for customer service. She has been exemplary, and she has helped in the IT in oh so many ways. But I'm really, really happy to know that IT found the work she did and the help that she gave them to be particularly helpful for them. And I'm very proud to be her colleague, and I'm very proud of her. Thank you.
I'm pleased to see Serge recognized by his peers for the Safety Smart Award. As a new supervisor, Serge now has the additional responsibility to ensure that he and his staff are working within the occupational health and safety regulations. Early on in his new position, Serge identified additional training for his staff, for example, ladder safety and working at heights training. Serge is constantly in contact with our health and safety department to make sure that any regulations are being followed. Congratulations, Serge, and thank you for making SDG a great place to work.
Thank you very much for that, Todd and Mr. CAO. As you are aware, we met the other day to discuss these awards. There was some very worthy submissions, and congratulations to all the ones who were decided the winners. And congratulations to all the members of our staff that have retired and have reached milestones within the organization. I can speak on behalf of County Council and say thank you very much for your service to this wonderful organization. Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from any other members of council? Very well. Seeing none, we'll move on to item B. MP Eric Duncan is with us this morning and will speak on behalf of the county newspaper digitization program. MP Duncan.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Good morning, everybody. Good to see you again, albeit virtually. And hello again, 2 meetings in a row. I promise I won't come back to a third unless invited. But I have a different hat on, back with my volunteer hat on this morning here to give you an update. Most of you are aware of the major progress and success we've had with the newspaper digitization project in working with CAO Simpson over the course of the last couple of months, trying to find a way to bring the project, the newspaper project, to a close without having to to come back every couple of months and bug County Council on some smaller items as we continue to get fill in the gaps of where we have with some of the collection. So I won't go through the entire letter. You were made aware of that. That's been signed by myself, Susan Peters, Jim Burnell, and Alan McDonald. They've been absolutely fantastic to work with. And I want to give kudos as well to the library and IT teams. They've been fantastic to work with as we've gone through for the last little while. Mike and Margaret have been great to work with as we get things online. So we have 210,000 pages online. That's growing because we're even still uploading some more of the more recent digital copies of local newspapers. But when we look at what we have left, we are figuring pleasantly, we keep getting more donations and some other gaps filling in. Particularly, Alan had let me know in Glengarry that there are 3 different newspapers going back as far as 1927, the Alexandria Times, Counterpoint, and La Pointe, about 3,500 pages there that would bring additional, resource or preservation to those. Stormont County, the Lost Villages, they're continuing. They've got several thousand more photos organized by the former hamlets and villages. Jim Burnell and Jeanette Guy are going through and each photo online, going through and writing the information, typing the information and the address, former owners, all the information. And again, their work is into the dozens of hours, if not into the hundreds of hours so far. And then, of course, Susan in Dundas County, the trove of former newspapers, current and past, that we have in Dundas County. There are Morseburg Leaders and Chesterfield records to finish up. So what we got thinking in the simplicity of it here is, you see on the 3rd page of our letter together, our joint letter, is just a proposal to County Council to help wrap this up, as opposed to going back every couple of months, or for an example, 6 or 8 months down the road, Alan or Susan get another couple of dozen or couple hundred pages to digitize, as opposed to coming back to County Council every time with that request. The suggestion that I've come up with, or we've come up with, is to create a digitization reserve fund. It can be allocated out of reserves right now. Payment of that can be to your desire in 2022, but that would just allow us to do a couple of things, is to go ahead and finish off the newspaper projects we've got. We know of about probably 40,000 pages for sure, but just to have something there that if other things come, if microfilm comes and filling in some of those gaps, we can do that quite easily and quite timely. To continue the current rate we have with Image Advantage, they've been fantastic to work with, a very professional organization. And I know, as I mentioned before, the clerks and CAOs have worked with them over the years on the minutes and the digitization of those. And then number 4, number 5 just allude to that. So again, if we have somebody that comes forward with a couple of dozen papers or microfilm, we can tap into that and going from there. But of course, as an accountability piece, having been at the table, you guys will want to know what's going on. So getting an annual key information report through the CAO, and even myself, I'm willing to come back just to let you know what's happened over the course of the last year, where the dollars are gone, and what maybe next steps the volunteers are working on. So I just think that would be a good way to move the project forward and to see it come to completion. And with that, I know you have a busy meeting, so I'll just take any questions or comments you may have on the project.
Okay, thank you very much, MP Duncan. Yeah, I want to thank you for all your volunteer work on this file as well. It's near and dear for me as a member of the Glengarry County Archives. I think it's imperative that we do what we need to do to protect all that stuff. It's very important. So I'll open that up to the questions of members of council. Councillor McGillis.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Warden. Eric, what newspapers have not yet submitted, to volunteer to submit pictures and articles and things like that? I didn't see the Standard Freeholder in that list. Are they involved now?
Good question. Yes. So all the newspapers, so we've kind of separated it in this SDG project being SDG based newspapers. So as you're likely aware, we're working with the city of Cornwall now to digitize ones that are city based. That includes the Standard Freeholder, the Seaway News, La Journal, and other papers. So we're well underway with the city. And I appreciate council's strong support for this, of making this happen, because having this as an example template made it very easy to convince city council that this was a good good project and could be done. So we're working with them right now. So the standard freeholders and the Seaway Newses, they'll be done through the city's program, and we plan to work through a very similar setup to all this. I will note the challenge with the freeholder in several other older newspapers, but particularly the freeholder, the physical copies of the papers, there's not as many. We have several small years here and there, but the overwhelming majority of it is on microfilm or negative. So we're working on the technology. It's actually cheaper to do it that way to convert those and digitize the microfilm. So we're working with the library, working with the city, working with the Cornwall Community Museum, and you'll see that come to fruition through the city's budget and work in the course of the next year and a half.
Thank you.
But I will just say, from a rural perspective and even from the city, the newspaper ownerships, current and even ones that have closed, have been absolutely fantastic to work with. We've literally encompassed every single newspaper in SDG. If we don't have it, it's because we haven't had it made available to us yet that we're aware of. But for example, the Morseburg Leader, the Chesterville Record are great examples of Glengarry News. The ownership teams and the staff have been absolutely fantastic to work with and have provided the copies. For years, there was always, oh, well, it's copyright and this and that. They understand the value of this. They understand the preservation and the fact that they could never afford to do it on their own. So to have this in public hands and ownership, everyone's been on board and very supportive of this.
Wonderful. Thank you, Councillor McGillis. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Warden. I fully support this project, and I think it's so important to preserve the news from the past. Just a question, because I know this is the last big chunk that you're sort of asking for here, but going forward, in years to come, what do you see as a requirement to maintain financially to maintain this project year by year?
Good. Well, thank you, Councillor Williams. And part of that point is having that permanent fund there. So for an example, in a couple of years from now, say we get some more copies of the Alexandria Times, we wouldn't have to come back to County Council and say we've got 300 pages with image advantage at this rate. There's that fund that helps set that up. And I'm not sure, I think at this point, when we get this batch done, we're probably talking into the hundreds of more pages at a time, not seeing large swaths of it, but there's that aspect. But in terms of the financial aspect of that, Mike St. Onge and Margaret from the library have been absolutely great to work with. And the Atom software we've got is very cost effective. We're able to host all the newspapers on the county servers and have it open source online. So it makes it very cost effective. The actual cost of maintaining this is very minimal. If anything, it'd be Mike's in-kind time, which has been great, but we look at a very low cost of this. And I had breakfast with Alan McDonald Saturday at the South Glengarry. I'm meeting Jim Burnell on Thursday, talking about a bit more digitization and some other stuff, details to come, but very low maintenance costs and operational costs, thankfully, over the next few years with this, which was part of our goal right from the outset.
Great. Thanks very much for your question, Councillor Williams. Are there any other questions or comments from members of council? All right, seeing none, thank you very much for your presentation, MP Duncan. Again, thank you very much for your volunteerism and being the face for this group. It's great, and we certainly appreciate your work. So,
well, thank you very much, Mr. Warden, and thank you everybody for the continued support. Much appreciated. Take care and stay well, everybody.
Have a wonderful day. Okay, good stuff. Moving on to item number C, presentations. Ms. Russell, I believe you're going to introduce our next two presenters.
Council, I do believe Ian Murphy is on the call. So our next delegation is the 2020 financial statement presentation. So I'll let Ian, our auditors, continue with the presentation.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to share my screen. So I'm here to present the draft financial statements for the United Counties for December 31st, 2020. So if you do have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask, but I'm going to go through a brief overview of some of the numbers. and then turn it back over. So we'll start on the independent auditor's report. So management's responsible for the preparation and presentation of these financial statements, and we're responsible for issuing an independent opinion on these financial statements. So our opinion is at the beginning of our audit report, and we have our opinion. The company consolidated financial statements present fairly in all material respects the consolidated financial position of the counties as at December 31st, 2020. The result of its consolidated operations, changes in net financial assets, and its consolidated cash flows for the year ended in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards. So it's a clean audit report that we'll be issuing as soon as council approves the draft financial statements. Moving forward, this is a statement of financial position. This outlines the assets and liabilities of the counties at December 31st. So a snapshot, you'll notice you have total assets of just over $30 million, total liabilities of $3.8 million, leaving you net financial assets of $26,211,000. You also have non-financial assets. So you have tangible capital assets, which is your investment in your infrastructure, equipment, and buildings of $118,000. You have inventory of just under $2.4 million and some prepaid expenses. So at the end of December, you had a total accumulated surplus of $146,901,000. We jump ahead to the schedule of accumulated surplus. This outlines the breakdown of that $146 million. So you'll notice there's three main sections. You have your operating surpluses and deficits, $362,000, which is broken down between the library board, the police service board, and you have some employment benefit payable. The general surplus or deficit is transferred to the reserves at the end of each fiscal, so that number shows as zero each year. In the middle, you have your reserves that have been set aside for specific purposes. Total just over $28,300,000. So an increase from the year before, from 22 million. And then you have your invested in capital assets of 118 million, which make up your total accumulated surplus. We'll jump back to page 2, which is the statement of financial activities. This is your total revenue and expenses during the year. So at the end of 2020, you had total revenue of just under 58 million and total expenses of just under 49 million for the year. You had some revenue for capital purposes of 1.7 million, leaving a total public sector accounting standard surplus of 10,700,000. So that is the surplus that we report to each year based on our accounting standards. And if you turn to page 18, we provide a further breakdown to bring it back to the budgetary surplus or the operating surpluses that you budget for each year. So you'll notice you have your 10,700,000 surplus at the top, and we do the adjustments for accounting standards, for reserves, capital assets, and any transactions through your capital assets. That brings you down to a total operating surplus for the year of 950,000. 146,000 was transferred to the library board surplus, and 60,000 deficit was transferred from the police service board surplus. That left a general surplus of $864,000 for the year. So overall, everything's right in line with your budget. Your general surplus at the end of the year worked out to approximately 1.5% of your total budgeted expenditures. So you're right in line at the end of 2020. And so overall, we had no concerns or no issues that we need to bring up to the county's attention. And I wasn't going to highlight any further numbers of the financial statements unless there's specific questions. So I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Warden.
Okay, thank you very much for your report, Ian. Are there any members, questions from members of council? Councillor Byvelds?
Thank you, Acting Warden. And thank you, Ian, for your presentation. It certainly shows that the combination of county council and certainly the financial management of staff has been stellar this year, even going through a COVID year. Question I have, and it can either be answered by you, Ian, or Rebecca. The reserves we put away on, because if you look at the math, our operating surplus would have been fairly significant. However, we did put a significant amount of funds away to cover county council's obligation to the LTC homes that we had in the area. So was that done at year end and shows now as a $6.5 million in the capital reserve fund?
Yes, so out of the 869,000 surplus, we did transfer the remaining balance to the Dundas Manor and the Maxwell Manor Reserve. So we have met our commitment of 6.5 million in our reserve. So that was topping up by just over 541,000. The balance of the surplus did go to the working reserve, and it was just over $322,000.
Okay, further, Acting Warden?
I'm sorry.
Further question, further on? Okay, thank you. Well, thanks for that, Rebecca. You had mentioned that during our budget presentation, but I want to make sure that the public knows that the surplus we did generate last year as per county council direction did go into the LTCs, and we all believe that's a great place to be. It's certain, having a surplus is certainly a great thing versus deficit. I'm not sure when the last time we had a significant deficit in counties, but it's a good thing that we look after our money. Secondary question to you, Ian, from a reserve point of view, you as looking at from an auditor point of view and looking at our reserves, do you have any comments? We have enjoyed good years and put money away. Are we getting to, are we at a comfortable point? Do we have too much in reserve, or do we have not enough in reserve? I think as council, we tend to need to know that go forward, especially if something pops up or we go through a budget year next year that's a little bit tighter than we'd like it to be.
Yeah, I mean, your reserves are in a very healthy position right now. So with that long-term care reserve that you set aside at $6.5 million, you're sitting at just over 50% of your budgeted expenses sitting aside in reserves. So that's a very, very healthy number from your standpoint. At a county level, we would say the range would typically be in the 20 to 40% range. That's kind of where we'd like to see. The individual township would be at a higher level, closer to 50%. But at the county level, you can get away with being slightly lower than that. But if you remove that long-term care commitment, you're sitting at 39% of your budget expenses. So you're within that range, but you're at the higher end of it. I also caution you, though, that doing a large infrastructure project can quickly use up some of those reserves. So while you're in good shape now, it depends on your budgeted expenses in the next couple of years, whether that's an appropriate level or low or high. It just depends on the major infrastructure work going forward.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Basically, study the ship. Are there any other questions of members of council? Seeing none at this time, thank you very much for your presentation, Ian. And Ms. Russell, I believe there's another one in your...
Through you, Mr. Acting Warden, I do have a resolution to accept the statements, if you'd like me to read it.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Yep, it's moved by Councillor Laundrie, seconded by Councillor Byvelds, that Council receive the 2020 financial statements for the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry as presented by MNP LLP Chartered Professional Accountants.
All those in favor of the resolution? Motion is carried. Thank you very much for that, Madam Clerk. And back to you, Ms. Russell.
We do have a presentation from the KPMG regarding the service delivery review. I do see that Bruce is attempting to connect right now to complete the presentation to council. Okay, I think he's connecting there now. So I'll let KPMG present their report and their findings regarding the service delivery review. And I'm very happy to have participated in this review. It was really a good assignment for all of us staff, and it was good working with KPMG. So good morning, Bruce.
Good morning. How's everybody this morning?
It's doing well.
A pleasure to be here, Your Worship, County Council staff, to present our final report on the review of the court and financial services areas. If I could just check, is my colleague Sana on the call? We were doing double duty this morning, so I don't know.
I believe you're the only one on this morning.
Okay, well, thank you.
She just joined.
All righty. Hi, Sana. Sana, are you going to present this morning the screen? Yes,
I will, Bruce. I'm
Okay,
just going to
great.
share my screen now.
Okay. So I must say, just so everyone's aware, that I grew up around the corner from the county seat in downtown Cornwall. So even though it's only a virtual visit, it's great to be back in Cornwall. All right. So we are going to walk through the executive summary of the final report this morning. What we'd like to do is we're going to talk about what we were engaged to do and then review the opportunities that we identified together with your staff. So in terms of a project overview, we turn to the page. We were engaged by the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry to undertake a service delivery review on the county's court and financial services areas. And the whole purpose of this was to identify opportunities for greater efficiency and modernization in those two service areas. We understood that the review would examine court and financial services to assess the current program and service models, and also explore the alignment to your strategic plan and legislative requirements. We further understood that the recommendations coming out of our work would result in helping the court and financial services areas become more efficient and effective in the delivery of the services to citizens, and also identify opportunities for cost reductions, customer service improvements, and overall modernization. So if we think about it in specific terms, the project would provide recommendations to A, reduce operating costs, ensuring that staffing resources and structures are maintained to support recommended services and service levels. B, modernize services through digitization or other practical means. C, increase efficiencies. D, measure and report progress. E, identify strategies for continuous improvement. F, identify opportunities to build internal capacity. G, improve service quality. And finally, H, ensure that current staffing complements are appropriate. So that was our assignment at the beginning of the engagement. If you turn the page, Sana, to the opportunities. So we have a number of opportunities that we developed together with your staff, and we'll start with the first one. First opportunity is to centralize all the tasks related to accounts receivable, AR. And that is, for example, invoicing, collections, follow-up, etc., within the finance department. Okay. The second one is to implement online timesheet software for all applicable departments. The third is to utilize the necessary HRIS software functionalities that you have to manage employee requests and HR process flows for things such as WSIB claims, contract term renewals, performance reviews, etc. This will also increase the employee access to information that will result in fewer requests to HR staff. 4, the county is developing an asset management plan, so we think there's an opportunity to further refine the plan to streamline ownership and maintain the plan going forward. The county should consider recruiting a contractual position or consultant for future support. And this is something that we see with a lot of our clients across Ontario as the province's asset management requirements increase. Number 5, confirm key metrics and KPIs for both departments and begin to track and report them on a quarterly basis to senior management so they can evaluate performance. So those are the first 5 opportunities. If we turn the page again, number 6 is to eliminate reports and action requests to council requesting permission to proceed on purchases or contract awards that were previously approved in the annual budget. A summary of contract awards can be provided to council on a quarterly basis or as per the procurement bylaw. Number 7, the court services staffing structure should be evaluated, specifically the requirement for a full-time collections officer position, the recruitment of a full-time receptionist, and finally the recruitment of an additional court service representative, CSR. Turn the page again. Number 8, consider implementing scheduling software for court services because it currently is being done manually. Number 9, define or re-emphasize roles and responsibilities of the court services representatives. Number 10 is technology should be used for all the key tasks. Okay, so training and change management will be essential to encourage user acceptance. So that's thinking about how you use technology across all the key functions of the court and financial services areas. And finally, number 11, explore the option to extend the deadline to submit payroll to the bank. So those are the 11 opportunities that we developed together with your staff. And if you turn the page finally, you can see that we plotted the opportunities on a priority matrix. So we plotted the impact of the opportunity against the effort it would take to achieve the delivery of that particular opportunity. And you can see the quick wins that we had identified as number 5, which is reporting and tracking on key metrics. Number 1, centralizing all tasks related to accounts payable. And 3 and 4, which is utilizing your current HRIS software and the contractual position or outsourcing development of the asset management plan. So with that, Your Worship, I will turn it back to yourself. If you council has any questions, we'd be more than pleased to answer them.
Okay, thank you. Could you stop sharing your screen so I can see all members of council? I'd like to thank you very much for your presentation. Are there any questions of members of council? All righty, seeing none. Thank you very much for your detailed report. There's a lot of good information there, and staff and council will be reviewing it. And thank you very much for your presentation. CEO Simpson, did you want to add anything here?
Thank you, Mr. Warden, Mr. Chair. No, we wanted the report to be received, and the treasurer and I, along with the consultants, are going to circle back on the recommendations in the report and be bringing back some information to council in the future. Unless, Rebecca, you want to add anything else to that? No? Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much for your presentation and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 6, action requests. 2021 excluded expenses action request. Ms. Russell.
The motion's moved by Councillor Armstrong and seconded by Councillor Gardner that the Council of the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry approve the 2021 excluded expenses report as required under Ontario Regulation 28409.
Thank you, Ms. Russell.
Good morning, everybody. So the excluded expenses report is an annual reporting under the Ontario Regulation 28409. It's required to outline the non-cash items which are not part of the budget. So we prepare our budget on a cash basis, so we don't include certain non-cash expenses such as depreciation, post-employment benefits, and landfill closure costs, which don't apply to SDG. So based on the 2021 budget, the attached report includes all the non-cash expenses for the year as required by the regulation.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions of members of council? Seeing none at this time, all those in favor of the resolution? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to C, transportation, microservicing change order, action request. Madam Clerk.
It's moved by Councillor Wirt, seconded by Councillor Armstrong, that the Council of the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry authorize the Director of Transportation Services to approve a change order valued at $72,171.60 plus HST to extend the microsurfacing on SDG 31 an additional 2.1 kilometers north to County Road 7.
Mr. DeHaan.
Thank you and good morning to Council. Just very briefly, after we had chatted about not only microsurfacing in April and then some of our projects in May, we had Council gave us direction to remove Martintown from the microsurfacing contract because we were actually bringing that reconstruction project to tender, so microsurfacing wasn't necessary anymore on that roadway to hold the roadway. That resulted in about $52,000 in savings whenever we removed microsurfacing in Martintown. Additionally, we had about $17,000 in unspent money. So what staff did was we went back and looked at an additional section of roadway to continue on work we're doing on County Road 31. So it'll bring us up to County Road 7. And that brings us to, we had budgeted $450,000 with the extra work. The end estimated value of the work is $454,000. So well within kind of what we can accommodate in terms of an overage on that project. So it's for Council's consideration. Certainly there's no requirement to approve it if Council doesn't want to go ahead, but I guess from where I sit, we've budgeted the money to do this, to microsurface, and here we can maximize the amount of work we're doing this given year. And this is a piece of road that we were planning to bring forward next year, so gets us a little bit ahead and keeps us working and moving forward.
Thank you very much, Mr. DeHaan. Yeah, I appreciate the conversation we had on the weekend. I appreciate your taking the time to answer my questions. Any Councillor Byveld?
Thank you, Acting Warden, and thanks to you, Ben, and your staff for bringing this report forward. I know we had a significant discussion on this roadway in the past, and I think this makes a lot of logical sense that you get at least halfway to Winchester Springs, and it's a good cutoff at County Road 7. And in full disclosure, my farm's on both sides, so not here to try to benefit from it, but certainly know that microservicing is a significant asset keeper in SDG and anywhere. I as much as some people will be challenged with the rough roadway at first, we all know that in the end it'll smooth out and it'll be keep that roadway going for many years. So appreciate that, and I think spending this extra bit of money in this way is certainly a useful way of spending the budgeted funds. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your disclosure, Councillor Byveld. We appreciate that for transparency purposes. Are there any other questions of council members? Seeing none, all those in favor of the resolution? Motion is carried. Thank you. Moving on to number 7, tenders and quotations. Moriarty Municipal Drain Box Culvert Replacement. Action request. Madam Clerk.
It's moved by Councillor McDonald, seconded by Councillor Williams, that the Council of the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry award the replacement of the Moriarty Municipal Drain Crossing to W.H. McSwain Incorporated for a total tender price of $176,900 plus HST, and authorize the Director of Transportation Services to sign all documents to give effect to the contract.
Thank you very much. Back to you, Mr. DeHaan.
Thank you, and just I'll keep this one very brief. It's a classic pull the old culvert out, put the new culvert in. We've already pre-purchased the culvert. The road will be closed for a determined period of time. We're talking like a handful of days, not weeks, to get this work done. We're coming in under budget, which I think is a testament to some aggressive pricing we saw, as well as just the value of pre-purchasing that culvert, making sure it's available, and kind of buying it a little bit off peak season too. So all in all, very good, and we look forward to, it'll be the first time that we work with HS McSwain as a contractor, but we did do a reference check, and the references were very complimentary of this contractor. So we look forward to working with them.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your continued thinking outside the box. I think it's definitely benefiting the organization. Are there any questions of members of council? Councillor Byveld, then Councillor Laundrie.
Thank you, Acting Warden. Ben, how much, in your estimation or opinion, are we saving by closing roads? And I know it's only a week, but we are talking class 2 road that has a significant traffic volume, and my best guess is is a tender east on Goldfield and then down 1-2 and then back on 11 and back on 43. And I'm not in North Stormont, but I'm just looking at some roads on a map. But anyway, I know we closed the South Branch Bridge for a significant amount of time in South Dundas last year, and it can cause some major inconvenience. And I know it saves us dollars, but it's the cost benefit ratio in between, and knowing that as a county council is certainly good. So that's my question. Thank you.
Yeah, I know from our other, the research we've done on it, I've heard a third of the cost plus to be able to close a roadway. And that's a lot of times for not only this type of work, but conventional bridges. But a project of this nature, actually, it becomes very, very challenging, particularly because this structure, if I'm not mistaken, is a fully cast in place structure. So it's a continuous structure. So being able to segment it and leave part of a lane open, I think would quite honestly require some engineering inside of it to support what's left over as half of the bridge disappears. So it can be very, very challenging when we're doing, culverts. Yes, we can use steel plates, and as we kind of piece them together and pull them out, you can do it. But this one would have been really, really challenging to figure out a way to keep that road open, quite honestly. In terms of the detour, and I apologize, I don't have the road names in front of me, but it is that first local road that's south of this. So the detour is not overly inconvenient for traffic, but I respect it's incredibly inconvenient for the people that live on that road and the local municipality, and we appreciate the cooperation and the willingness to work with us on it, because I get it, and I'm confident that if we had to keep the road open, we're talking, this is a 3-week project easily by the time you're in and out of there. So it's completely accelerates the work. And I look to the MTO as a model who also, this is the way they prefer to do their projects as well nowadays, is just drop that bridge in one night, close the roadway, drop the bridge, and then close the 401 again as they're putting up girders, but just accelerates the construction so much more efficiently and effectively.
Thank you very much, Mr. DeHaan. Councillor Laundrie.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Warden. Ben, just a 2-part question. So one, the timeline of a week, I understand the cost saving. Do we have a minimum standard as far as, like, I understand somebody's on the other side of this culvert having to drive. Is there a minimum kilometer distance that we usually go by? I can see if you're driving 4 kilometers. Another thing is if you're driving 15 kilometers just to get around. So that's something I'll have to talk to our roads department, maybe get a better handle on. But my question is, do we have a timeline as far as start date for this project?
We actually left it relatively wide open. Like, it's the way we've structured the schedule on this one. It's you have the project has to be done by, and I don't have it in front of me, but let's say it's like October 1st. So they have to have the project done by October 1st, but once they show up on site, they have 5 days to do the work. So we tried to leave it a little bit loose to give contractors that ability to, finish projects, make it a little more competitive, give them that, give them some flexibility. And we found, and I think it speaks for itself in terms of the pricing we see. It does create that opportunity for some savings. So I don't have a specific start date, but after we do engage, provided council approves this contract, first thing we do is start talking about schedule when they're thinking about it, and then we work through a communications and detour plan, and we'd be working closely with North Stormont on that. In terms of the distance we consider for a reasonable detour, there is no hard and fast rule. We've looked at a bunch of different, a great example right now is the work we're doing on County Road 10 at McPhee Bridge. Like that was a location where it was like we talked about a detour, and the ability to detour there was just not impossible, but it was an extremely onerous detour that just really didn't make logical sense. So there are instances where we can, and there are instances where it's like where we can't, or we're really challenged by a detour. So no hard and fast rule. It's somewhat of a judgment call based on the length of it.
If I may add, Acting Warden, just one more thing, just to keep in mind, I believe going through the summer holidays right up to say late August, beginning September, I believe with the vaccine ramping up, more traffic will be hitting the roads probably come September, October. So if we can tend to this in maybe late summer, which is prime holiday time, would maybe be a consideration. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Landry. Mr. DeHaan, I had a question in regards to the contract. Is there a requirement for the contractor to notify the local residents post signage? Like, I would hate for them to show up on, Monday morning without any advance warning and the road is closed. Is there any advance warning for the affected residents, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely. That's something we include in all our contracts, and our staff, our field staff know, whether it's the contractor's responsibility or our responsibility, that's a box we check before we start work.
Okay, great. Thank you. Are there any other questions of council? Seeing none, all those in favor as the resolution? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Warden's house repairs action request. Madam Clerk.
It's moved by Councillor Williams, seconded by Councillor Wirt, that the Council of the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry authorize staff to prepare a variety of quotations to complete the repairs to the Warden's house, and that the requirements of Policy 1-12 be waived for any quotation awarded that is in excess of $50,000 in total value, and that the global budget for the repairs to the Warden's house be set at a maximum of $200,000 inclusive of all costs, and that any unfunded costs that cannot be attributed to COVID relief funding or COVID grants be taken from the building reserve, and that staff provide monthly updates on the progress and committed costs.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. I'll open this up to questions. CEO Simpson, did you want to speak to this?
Well, thank you, Mr. Warden. Sure, Ben, do you want to speak to it, or?
Sure, I'll speak to
Sorry.
the
no problem.
No worries.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, go ahead, Ben.
I was going to say I'll speak to the project itself, what we're asking for through this resolution, and then if the CAO wants to add anything in terms of staff location, relocation, or any questions about staffing, I'd turn it over to him and the other departments that we have, department heads that are with us today. Very quickly, I'm going to share my screen to show. What the scope of the work is. Maybe just if I could see a thumbs up that's actually being displayed. Perfect. Thank you. So really this project is about the renovations to the Warden's house on the second floor. So on the top floor of that house, which was a former residence, the offices are done. There's 3 kind of workspaces there already available, ready to go. We have fiber connected into that building that used to be used by Cornwall and the Seaway Valley Tourism as their main office. And it's more the first floor, so the floor you walk in on where we're proposing some work. and the basement to just provide some structural support. So what you're looking at here is some pictures of the existing first floor, where we essentially are demoing and just replacing a bearing wall. And you can see the in the center is actually what the design looks like. So it's a demo of that reception area that's there right now, replacement of the load bearing wall behind where the TV is. And then on the bottom, you can see kind of how that floor, excuse me, I should also mention a demo of that holding cell that functioned as kind of that initial intake cell whenever the jail was functional back up until it was closed in early 2000s. So it actually creates a pretty significant floor space and workspace that's that can be used by, we've got three easily fit workstations there. In the basement is really where a lot of the work is happening, and show a couple pictures of that basement, but it's more or less, it's been a hodgepodge of jack posts and different beams and whatnot that have been in there since, the actual timber frame is good. But what we're trying to do is just remove some of this hodgepodge material and actually put in a consistent one I-beam right across the bottom floor, make sure it's properly supported with foundation and that it's aligned over top of the load-bearing wall that's on the previous floor that I showed you here. So that's the extent of the work that we're talking about. The project itself, again, we've kind of identified areas where we know there's some designated substances, so we're able to easily work around that, or not easily, like there is, that's not easy, but we've identified those challenges and we feel we can do that. What we're asking for in this action request, in lieu of trying to have one general contractor come in, do it all, walk away, and we had tendered it that way. What we're looking for is council support to essentially we function as the general and we just bring in the various trades to work through it. So, job number one would be to start removing some of this plumbing and create that open corridor in the basement so that the new I-beam can go in. Then you find somebody to come in, put the I-beam in, put the jack posts in, demo, pull out the wall, put in the new wall. And then have the plumbers come back in, electricians come back in later on to connect everything, and then you have someone come in and put a new floor floor surface down. We are similar to how we're approaching the work in St. Andrews West. What we're looking for is we still want to obviously do things competitively. That's a tenet to the work and how we do it. But because of the low value of our ability to award via quotation, we're asking for that to be waived so that staff can actually award a higher value than $50,000. And then we're also noting we're trying to identify that global budget, so council has some comfort in knowing kind of what we're working towards. It was recently announced through MPP MacDonnell that we were successful in getting $100,000 in funding through a COVID relief fund, and I do want to note as well that the county has access to a variety of other COVID funds. So we see this as a great use of some of those funding to be able to provide some office space. And for us, at the end of the day, we foresee that there is no impact to taxation to be able to do this work, or very minimal, if any at all. And we're committing as well, if council does see it fit to proceed with this work, we're committing to come back at a monthly basis and kind of give an update to council so that they have some comfort in terms of what we're doing there. So that's it. And I don't know, CAO Simpson, if there's more you want to add to that.
No, thanks very much, Ben. That's great work. There's the lower floor work that Ben was talking about to be covered, hopefully 100% under the COVID funding that we've been allocated, and then there's the office space upstairs that we would like to repatriate as well. So no, thanks very much for that, Ben, and Mr. Warden. I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you very much, CEO Tim Simpson and Ben. Thank you. Seeing that this report is in front of you, are there any questions of county council members? Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Warden. I just took the tour this morning with Councillor Fraser, and I appreciate your thoroughness, Mr. DeHaan. $200,000 is not an insignificant amount of money by any person's means, but it's not onerous to the financial pockets of the counties in the situation we sit. The one concern that I do have, and I know you don't have a crystal ball, Mr. Dehaan, but do you have any contingency sort of ideas as to, I mean, anyone sitting on the panel or anyone out there who has ever built a house or even a fair-sized shed, there seems to be constant questions if you're going to be being your own general contractor or involved in the project. And it does concern me a little bit if we're going to take on something. It's not huge in scope, but it certainly has some irregularities to it. It's not building a brand new house or anything like that. You're retrofitting. When you showed us the basement, I mean, there's a lot of different people have had a hand in how that basement is constructed right now. And this is meant more in the respect of what your full-time position is and the work, day-to-day work that it is that we expect of you and require of you, Mr. Dehaan. What would happen if you are bogged down with questions and how much of your time is taken away from your primary purpose? Yes, it's important. It's important to our staff, I suppose, and council is to be in line with this projection. But what if it becomes to be a huge inequity of time that's taken with you, especially when you're going to break up all of the different trades and bring them in at a time you're going to be searching for trades? Is it all going to be on you, or are you going to be doing this by committee? How is this supposed to work?
Yeah, thank you. So we are, we actually have, it won't be me. I guess to plainly answer, it'll be delegated to staff. So Mike, who I know is, very competent in terms of his knowledge of structural and renovation, as well as our building maintenance coordinator, who has done a lot of the kind of some of the work you saw there. So he knows his way around this kind of work as well. So I feel very confident that those staff members, we're gonna set out the scope of work, put them in charge, and I have full confidence. I'll be just reporting back to council, but I don't see this as going to be impacting my day-to-day work.
Okay, thank you very much for your report, Ben. It's a very well executed report. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Warden. Yeah, I support the need for this work. I'm glad it can be covered mostly under COVID dollars. I just one thing with regards to the reconfiguring of the main floor, is I know that what was it? Cornwall and Seaway Valley Tourism used to use that space, and there was a welcome area there, and the public used to enter there and then go on jail tours, I believe. So with that space then being taken over by staff, I'm assuming that it won't be used for public welcoming the public anymore. I just want to make sure that we have access to the historic jail. I'm assuming that tours will eventually resume at some point, and that we have the ability to welcome the public into that building.
Mr. Warden, I can take that one if that's okay.
Yep, that's not a problem.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Williams. That's a good question. As you know, this is the second year that, as you pointed out, this is the second year we haven't been able to do tours because of the pandemic. But the plan is, and it has been, to welcome visitors, whether they're for a jail tour or to the building, to come in the front entrance where the main doors are, down into the lower level. We can set that up, and then there's a door, as you know, that goes right from there into, you can either go into the jail area, you can come upstairs and come into the council chambers. So that's certainly something that, we've got a little bit of time to figure out exactly how that's going to work with our tourism coordinator and Tara. So certainly the intent is not to cut off access to that that area. And as council knows, that hole, if you've been down there, and I don't mean hole as in HOLE, I mean HWHOLE, issue has to be looked at and talked about at length in terms of what we want to do with, when I say we, I mean the county wants to do with that non-warden's house area. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for bringing that up, Councillor Williams. It was a very valid point. Councillor Byvelds.
Thank you, Acting Warden. a few things that come to mind on the warden's house, and I guess the first one I do have a challenge is that I know we have an upset limit of $200,000, but some of us have been involved with older buildings of vintages of this sort, and sometimes once you uncover what you think you had there and it's not there and it's something different, and you may need to consider contingencies. I think we certainly will look forward to the updates, and before I go on any further, it's good that we did get some dollars in the infrastructure grant system. It certainly will help us in this work, but as I said, we need to be very mindful of what we're working in. Couple questions, I guess these would be directed to our CAO. Going through the report, there was various descriptions of where staff are. They're kind of hodgepodged here, there, everywhere else. Have you ever considered, and I know it costs dollars, but sometimes spending dollars and have someone else looking at it gives you a different perspective. Have someone come in and analyze the space and talk to staff and how you can use the space we have better. In the number of years that you have been there, we have had some transitions. I know we have more staff, and that's pretty normal in every municipality. We in South Dundas have run out of space, and we would have never dreamed that in 2014 when we built the South Dundas Municipal Center. Having going on, the CFDC left our building in 2012 or something like that, so that's freed up a bunch of space, and I know we got IT in there. My question to you is, have you ever considered like doing a space study and seeing if that's the right thing to do, or do you feel comfortable that between you and your directors that you're utilizing the space to the best of your ability and making sure that's as efficient as possible, considering that COVID is not going to last forever, and distancing hopefully will be minimized relatively going down the road? And then I do have a follow-up, Mr. Acting Warden.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Okay, through you, Mr. Warden. Thank you for the question. Yes, I would say that is something that has been talked about in the past. Council will recall that, well, it's a few years, time flies, but we did a major overhaul. Councilor Biles will remember in, mid 2014, 2015, 2016 of the court services area, which is on the 3rd floor, to accommodate a new reception area. And that was a very large project and required some rejigging at that point. But as you quite rightly point out, the pandemic, created real challenges for staff, and everybody's back in the office here now. So, we've tried to react to that as best we can. I guess to answer your question directly, I think that the directors and I have had a lot of conversation over the last few months, leading up to coming back to the office, and now in the context of the warden's house to try to move the yardsticks forward in terms of accommodating everybody on a more permanent basis. We have upstaffed, particularly as you point out, in IT in the last few years. So that's created some challenges, but I'm confident, Councillor Byvelds, that between the directors and myself, we can come up with if we can utilize the space over there, we can come up with a good plan that's going to not only accommodate the number of bodies that we have, but be as efficient in terms of co-locations as possible. You all know we're working in an old building here. There's 3 parts of this building. There's the original building where the council chambers is from the 1830s, where corporate services and transportation services is. This is the 1880s addition. And then to the north is the 1950s edition. So it's kind of cobbled together, but that's a long-winded way of saying, I guess I'm confident that we can come forward with a really good plan to ourselves that will accommodate the people we have. And I don't really see, going forward post-pandemic, I don't really see more staff on the horizon. So I think if we can get a decent plan in place, we can move it forward. If that's an acceptable answer, Councillor Byvelds.
Continuing on, Acting Warden.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for that, Tim. I know you can say we don't foresee more staff, but we have actually added a few more bodies in the last few years that all of a sudden you have to find a space, and no disrespect, but Mike's there, Peter's come on board, like it evolves, and it happens in our municipality. It's going to happen in every municipality, and I will leave it up to you and directors, but keeping that in the back of your mind that sometimes having a fresh eyes looking at it might give you some help. I will also say this: you can have fresh eyes look at it, look at the report, and wonder why you did it. So I'll leave that challenge up to you. The second item I'd like to bring over is about tourism. I know that our tourism booth technically was in that old warden's house, and perhaps as much as COVID has delayed tourism, I think tourism is going to take off here, not this year maybe, but certainly in the years to come. People have been cooped up way too long, and perhaps since that space is going to be taken up by staff, that we need to relook at how we're going to do tourism, and that's a topic for another day, but keeping that in mind, that I certainly would encourage staff to not forget that there are people that still like to go into a building and have a chat and be directed to where they should be going. And certainly technology is eclipsing it, but we want to make sure we invite each and every one that wants to come to SDG Cornwall, that they have somewhere to go and somebody to talk to if necessary. But as I said, another day, probably next year, or a future thinking session on tourism going forward. So thank you, Acting Warden.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Byvelds. Councillor Fraser.
Thank you, Acting Warden. I just wanted to, Councillor Armstrong mentioned earlier that the two of us had an opportunity to take a tour earlier today with Ben, and I understand Councillor Gardner and Councillor Williams have also had an opportunity to take that tour, and I think it was as Councillor Byvelds talks about fresh eyes. I had an opportunity to have fresh eyes look at that, and with Mr. DeHaan explaining some of the challenges and alleviating some of the concerns I had with the challenges through the inspections that have gone and the observations that taken by our staff. I look at this as an opportunity to put some final touches. The downstairs, the ground floor of this of what we're speaking of, where the tourism was, where people would enter for the jail tours. That's a nice big space. There's opportunity there, and as we went upstairs to see that, there are rooms up there already. There's electrical, there's plumbing, there's a lot of the things that are required to start off on a good project are in place already. I think this is an opportunity, and I appreciate the opportunity that was presented to all of us to have a tour of this, to have it explained much better than just looking at the report. It was good to see it with eyes. And again, my thanks to Mr. DeHaan.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fraser. I concur with what you and Councillor Williams said. I think it's time to move forward on this project. We've talked about it for some time. Last call for comments on this discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor of the resolution? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Does council want to take a break, 15-minute recess now, or continue on to bylaws, as we got quite a bit more on our agenda? What's the consensus? 10-minute recess. Okay, everybody turn your screens on and off and mute your things, and we'll be back at 10:25. Thank you. Okay, everyone, 1 minute warning. We're just about ready to get back going, please. And thank you. All righty. Got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, I'll wait a few more seconds for the others to join. Just waiting on Councillor McGillis and Councillor McDonald. There's Councillor McDonald. Okay, we're ready to roll. Thank you all for joining us again. So we're going to move on to item number 8, bylaws, renewal of corporate insurance policy, action request.
It's moved by Councillor Fraser, seconded by Councillor Gardner, that bylaw number 5298, being a bylaw to authorize the acceptance of the municipal insurance program proposal submitted by Marsh for the period July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2022, at a total premium of $182,227 plus applicable taxes, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
Okay, Miss Russell, you're going to speak to this one?
Yes, I am. So the annual renewal for the municipal insurance policy for the 2021-2022 term has an overall premium increase of $23,762, which represents 15% increase, which is largely due to the market conditions right now. Unfortunately, we're coming off what is known as a soft market, where we had more insurers and lower rates. But as the industry-wide losses accumulated over the last several years, some unprofitable insurers pulled out of the market completely. So the remaining companies are forced to increase their rates in order to cover all their claims and to regain profitability. So we've entered into what is now known as a hard market for insurance, which may consist of increased premiums and reduced coverage. And it's mostly, the hard market's caused by a number of contributing factors that we're all quite aware of. So falling investment rates, increases in claims, and larger global losses. So there's many factors impacting the premiums too, such as higher award settlements, higher future care costs, and claim inflations. So as the market conditions continue to deteriorate, the rates and deductibles have increased significantly over the last couple of months. So as noted in the proposal, some of the changes include in our municipal liability package, the wrongful dismissal deductible increased from $5,000 to $10,000. Our property values have increased. The employment practice liability, the deductible also increased from $5,000 to $10,000, and the cyber policy term. So although the coverage and conditions remain as per the expiring policy, the premiums have increased from $7,750 to $11,600, which is almost a $4,000 increase. And this increase is due to a significant upsurge in the frequency and severity of cyber claims. So Carolyn Corkery, who is our broker, did approach 2 additional markets for the cyber insurance and for quotations. However, both have declined due to the current exposures. So essentially all those factors combined is what is contributing to our current increase of 15%. And I do have to say, although I was anticipating an increase, I was actually anticipating a larger increase in 15%. Based on other upper tier counties that over the last couple of years have seen significant increases. So the main part of this presentation is just the reasons for the increases and to accept the renewal for our July 1st renewal term.
Okay, thank you very much for your report, Ms. Russell. I guess the only question that I have at this time was there any other insurance companies like requested for a quote? Like I see that it's just one company. I'm just wondering if that avenue was explored.
We haven't explored that. I believe the last time we went out for RFP was probably around 2015 or 2016. And we haven't gone out to RFP again. To be honest, I don't think right now is an ideal time to go out for an RFP because of the market and because of so many factors and risk. We are in a good position right now because we've been with them for so long that many don't renew employee practice liability if you're starting out. Like we've already had those add-ons, and going to another insurance company, we may not have all that is offered. But it is something we could definitely look at in the future. But we've been with Carolyn Corkery at Marsh for quite a few years.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other questions of members of council? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to item B, encroachment agreement, civic number 18923, County Road 2, action request. Mr. Dahan.
Oh, the motion's moved by Councillor Byveld, seconded by Councillor Smith, that bylaw number 5299, being a bylaw for the purpose of establishing an encroachment agreement between the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry and Mr. Ian McLean, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
Mr. Dahan.
Thank you. Yeah, very briefly, this was came out of a severance that the property owner is going through, and we identified that it appeared the existing retaining wall in the front yard was in the right of way. So we've, we made that a condition of severance, and we've, using our boilerplate encroachment agreement, and this has gone between myself and the owner's solicitor. It's all good, very consistent with what we've done in the past. So any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Any questions of members of council? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Moving on to C, speed limit update, various roads action requests. Madam Clerk.
Moved by Councillor McGillis, seconded by Councillor Wirt, that bylaw number 5300, being a bylaw to revise the prescribed rate of speed for motor vehicles driven on certain county roads, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
Mr. Dahan.
Thank you. I'll just give a brief look at the areas that are contemplated to be changed as part of this bylaw. If again, if I could get a thumbs up that my screen is being shared correctly, that's very helpful. Thank you. So the first area is on County Road 1 in Hallville, and certainly at the end of this very quick presentation, if the representatives from North Dundas want to talk about some of that development there, because certainly you look at the aerial photo, it'd be hard to appreciate, but there's a significant amount of development happening in this area, and right now the start of the 50 km/h is just north of Maurice Street and St. John Street, but what's happening in the very near future, or happening right now, is there is a subdivision, big subdivision, or a big enough subdivision going in kind of at the north end of the settlement area, as well as subdivision going in near County Road 43. And on top of that, and exciting news for North Dundas, is a brand new park, a significant park development is happening there. So a lot of activity and action happening in Hallville. So as part of what we've been looking at, and for speed limits, we are recommending through our analysis moving the 50 km/h zone up north of the the new development that's taking place. I think that's called the Wiley Creek subdivision. I apologize if I'm getting that wrong. So that's contemplated in the bylaw update. Area number 2 is in St. Raffles, and we had a request to consider the speed limit through St. Raffles on County Road 18 in South Glengarry. Right now it's 60 km/h. With COVID, more people walking to school, and just, I guess, overall development and interest in community safety. We had a close look at this one, and certainly we confirmed that a 50 km/h zone was appropriate for St. Raffles through the entire kind of settlement area. Of interest for council, we had a good chat through our OPP Road Safety Task Force. We actually talked about all of these areas with the OPP. One of the things we like to do as a best practice is provide a transitional speed zone. So you go from an 80, you transition to a lower speed, and then you get to the speed you're trying to aim for within the settlement area. This is a circumstance where we're actually going from a 50 to an 80. And the reason being is that the roadside environment has a very quick and complete change. It's not a it doesn't lend itself to a transitional speed zone. So we had a good discussion with the OPP about that. They confirmed they appreciated the idea of just actually having a 50, and they didn't see any issue with that in this circumstance. So was a really good discussion that we had with them on transitional speed zones and how it applied to St. Raffles. In Williamsburg, we are proposing a speed limit or extending the 50 km/h zone. Again, this is just a function of the increased growth of that area. Right now, we have 50 that starts just past Shell Street, the easterly Shell Street connection with County Road 18. And then it's 60 km/h to the other side of Shell Street, and then it goes 80 km/h outside of town. But what we do see is there is some frontage, some access, again, pedestrian movement and all those things that factor into our analysis. So what we're recommending is actually extending the 50 km/h zone to the end of Shell Street on the west side, and then that transitional speed zone coming into town, a short transitional speed zone, and then back out to 80 in the rural area. County Road 27 in Somerstown, again, as a result of a concern that was brought into our staff, we had a good look at it, and here's an area that is currently 80 km/h right between 401 and County Road 2, but where we do have that kind of roadside frontage and development along County Road 27, it did trigger a reduction in speed limit. So it's the recommendation was 70 km/h, which staff support, and it's something that certainly as we see the development continue to grow through here, you know, we expect we might be coming back again at some point in the future. It's not there now, but at some point in the future, we'll have to keep an eye on it and determine if further reductions are warranted. So recommendation is to go to 70 km/h in the bylaw. Last one to bring forward is actually as a result of, again, continued development and growth, and these are all good things. Right now, Fenton Farm subdivision is under construction. One of the requirements of that subdivision, a draft condition of that subdivision was to do a traffic study, and the consultant had to look at speed limit on County Road 36, and this is an area that we do get a lot of questions about the speed limit and the appropriateness of the speed there. That analysis was done in accordance with how staff would do it. So we've taken the traffic study, we've reviewed it, we supported the findings, which was to eliminate the 80 km/h zone and change it to a 70 km/h zone through that area. So that's the changes that are being recommended, and I'm happy to answer any questions that there may be.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Bahan, for your presentation. I'm very thankful for the work that you did, especially in regards to St. Raffles. We had some concerns from some families with some young kids, so I certainly appreciate that, and I certainly can attest to Somerstown Road being developed, and I think it's a step in the right direction. I didn't see who had their hand up first. Councillor Gardner, and then Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Acting Warden. Just a quick question. I think this is a great move forward, but I'm just wondering, is there an enforcement plan in play with the OPP to educate drivers and find those that are not willing to decrease their speed with the new limits?
Yeah, I'm going to answer that in two parts. One is yes, yes, through the Road Safety Task Force, which I'm really appreciative of because we had this discussion, and the OPP was very much tell us when those speed limits are changed, and we can get out and actually do the enforcement to help reinforce the changes. Part two of that answer is one of the things we're working on departmentally. It's one of these later summer when the construction work is out the door and things are under construction, is we're looking at coming up with a community safety zone policy as well, and how we can actually start to implement more community safety zones in the right spots. It's something that, and I had a county engineers meeting last week, and we had a good chat about community safety zones, and everybody, everybody agrees if you just kind of, you get one, and like Oprah, everybody gets a community safety zone, they lose their effectiveness completely. So there was a lot of good, discussion about the, what are the key components to it? Why do you need to have them? When do you need to have them? And coming up with a policy for it. So I've got some sample policies, and my next step is to draft a sample policy, go back to the OPP task force, and have a good discussion at that road safety task force. So that's where we're moving, kind of from a grander picture, which introduces photo radar opportunities too. But
thanks, Ben.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Smith.
Thank you. Through you, Warden. I think this is a great thing that we're doing with the speed reduction, because speed has got to be probably right at the top of the list as far as complaints with our residents. And unfortunately, though, we can reduce the speed all we want, but if it's not enforced, it's not going to do anything. And that seems to be the problem. And we don't see enough enforcement out there. And another one of the problems is, and I've got on 2 occasions just recently,
I've had simultaneous calls or text message about a cruiser exceeding the speed limit, not by a little bit, by a lot, with no lights, no siren, no evidence that they were in a hurry to get anywhere. And it's scaring the bejesus out of the people walking the streets and their dogs and their families, and they don't feel safe going down the highway. And the one in particular is County Road 35, where in between Highway 2 and the 401. And people are calling and complaining, and I give them a number to call, and they say, for what? How are you going to get the police to police their own people? So I think that's a problem there too.
Thank you very much for your comments, Councillor Smith. Are there any Councillor Byvelds? Councillor Fraser after.
Thank you, Acting Warden. Ben, I don't disagree with all your recommendations to council on these speed reductions. However, you know that you and I both know the challenge of residents complaining about speed through either their hamlets or near their residence. And, you know, you get the big studies out and you prove to them that A, you need it, or B, most of the time you don't need it. So I would make sure that we are always respectful of those who do ask. And, you know, if we're going to do this, you need to have the proof to do it and continue on. I'm not disagreeing with any of what you have. They all make logical sense. It's just that challenge that we do get various requests, and somebody's going to say, well, you did it there, how come you're not doing it here? And, you know, it's that challenge we have as politicians to balance everything out. As for transitions, I think, you know, there were a few, and we probably all have transition areas that we could have assisted you in at least looking at. I know that we've had a request transitioning into the village of Morrisburg, and I know that's something we need to look at as we do the streetscape roundabout project, that perhaps we need to have a transition on County Road 31, because the 50 starts pretty close to where the roundabout's going to be, and we all know people don't have the habit of being down to 50 by the sign. They'll be 60, maybe 65, and then all of a sudden they're going to hit brakes and everything else. So as much as it hasn't been a significant challenge, we do have a street that comes out right at that 50 sign, and it's no different than any other village, like the village of Hallville, where you are transitioning. And the other one that will come up in the village of Morrisburg now with Dutch Meadows starting once the housing is built up, and as much as they're going to not coming out on County Road 2 directly as of yet, the traffic on Stewart will be significantly increased, and perhaps we need to look at changing speeds on County Road 2 to accommodate that. You know, we've had some requests for left turn lanes and everything like this, but not there yet. But a speed transition may be discussed. And even going into the village of Williamsburg, you're doing the western half, and that's right. There's certainly more buildup, and people are walking on our roads, and we need to be respectful of that. Transition coming from the north, as much as there's not really housing there. The 50 is pretty close to town, and by the time you slow down into it, it could be a place where a transition works. And we all have that. I'm defending what South Dundas has more so than everybody else, but if anybody else has that, I certainly will encourage councillors and you to get together and discuss those potential changes. Another thing I will mention, that I do agree with Councillor Smith that enforcement is a challenge. And we've had our challenges here on the old County Road 4 Lakeshore Drive, and we as South Dundas reduced down to 60. I would encourage each and every one of you, if you to find the speed sign that either you have or the counties have with you, and install it in certain places where you think there's an issue. You may be surprised at some of the statistics it pulls out, and either proves that there is a speeding issue, or proves maybe it's not. It's more a perception than the reality. So those are my comments. But as I said, you know, on the need for speed changes, I want to make sure that we're fair to our residents and make sure that we do it right every time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Byvelds. I know in the past, speaking with Mr. DeHaan, you've done, you've come into Lancaster when we had an issue there and did the statistics. So I think this report's very well done, and I certainly support it. Are there any other questions of County Council members? Councillor Fraser.
Thank you, Acting Warden. Yes, and to Ben. County Road 3 west of the village of Winchester, currently 60 once you leave the village limits as you approach the intersection, Ben. With the Wellings of Winchester development taking place there, will there be further consideration about, and maybe it's in the report and I just haven't understood it properly, will there be further consideration of extending the 50 zone west beyond the village limits? Currently that west is 60, but with the Foodland traffic and the traffic at Wellings of Winchester, including the construction traffic that's going on there now, will there be future consideration of lowering that section of County Road 3 to 50?
To be honest, so you didn't miss anything in the report. It's not in the report. We haven't looked at that. This wasn't a comprehensive look everywhere. This was really based on either things we knew were coming down the pipe or our concerns brought through residents. And I will just to kind of touch on what Councillor Byvelds was mentioning. For every time we change a speed limit or bring forward a recommendation for a speed limit change, there's probably 4 or 5 other different areas we've looked at based on questions from residents that we've done an evaluation and have determined no, and we're using a very prescribed methodology. So Councillor Fraser, to your point, I would be happy to take a look at that. We have to consider kind of the traffic, not construction traffic's temporary, so it's not something you kind of look at on a temporary basis and then change back when it's done, but rather you look at it kind of on its whole. So maybe maybe what we should be aiming to do is whenever we start looking at the Morseburg improvements, it's just I don't want to come back to the speed limit bylaw and repeal it and replace it every meeting. But perhaps what I can do is we do have a commitment to look at Morseburg whenever the streetscaping work as it's coming to its end. Let's include some analysis on County Road 3 near Wellings and see how that plays out.
Thank you, and Mr. Warden, if I have further to that, and I do appreciate, and I'm sure you appreciate that the construction traffic that I mentioned will be less than the residential traffic, and it's just that's all we're seeing that now. We do expect that it will increase. But thanks for bringing up the park in Hallville, and that's something I think we can all be proud of. And in North Dundas, especially, I know we're quite shy about it and about mentioning it, and we have shy members of council that wouldn't mention such a thing. But yes, we're eagerly anticipating the public meetings about the park in Hallville. It's there was grants from the federal and provincial government totaling $2 million, and there's going to be a commitment of $727,000 from municipal of North Dundas to this park in Hallville, which I know that during the campaign, the deputy mayor spoke about the improvements and the benefits of Hallville. I spoke about it in eager anticipation of this sort of thing taking off. But a question about the 50 kilometers in Hallville going north, will that be to the Hallville Fire Substation as a landmark for general reference purposes, or can you get that to me so we can talk about it at open council? Maybe tomorrow night we can mention that as something at our council meeting, that we're looking forward to the speed limit being reduced to this point for land point of reference.
I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure where the substation is, so off the top of my head. So yeah, I'll get you that and I'll send it to you so you have it for your council meeting.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. Okay, great. Thanks very much for that. Are there any other? Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you for your chair. What I hope is a quick question. So this process of looking at these speed limits, I gathered it's somewhat ad hoc, or did I misunderstand that there's sort of like a regular frequency as to when this is looked at, or is it just when you have like a critical mass of ones you want to update?
It's based on whenever we do get a written concern in from residents, we will take a look at it in accordance with Transportation Association of Canada guidelines. And in this circumstance, what's happened is we've actually, if I'm going to be straightforward with council, we've had a lot of requests in over the past several months, and we've done our analysis, and it's always like, okay, oh, we got another one to change. Okay, we keep pushing that. We push the bylaw update off and off and off, and finally we were able to catch up, and now we've caught up with everything. So it seems like we're making a lot of changes. Usually, Councillor Jaworski, we'll get a concern in, we'll take a look at it, and maybe update the bylaw based on that one concern. So it's on we don't comprehensively go through all of our speed limits and make sure they're appropriate. Usually it's based on some comments, feedback, or something that staff or either development or either just a resident concern that drives us to take a look at it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your questions. Seeing no more hands, all those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Cloud permit agreement action request.
Motion's moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor McDonald, that bylaw number 5301, being a bylaw to authorize an agreement between the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry and Evolta Software Incorporated, Cloud Permit, for the provision of planning software, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Handing this over to Mr. Peter Young.
Thank you very much, Acting Warden. As noted in the report, we currently use a in-house developed planning software system that was developed a number of years ago. However, it is older, and it crashes multiple times during the week and can only be used by one staff member. So after reviewing a number of software packages, we're recommending that council approve a contract with Cloud Permit. It is one of the most popular online programs, and it offers a number of features such as the pre-consultation online payments. An applicant can access their severance file directly online and see what their conditions are, what the statuses are. So that'll save a lot of time for staff in terms of the back and forth. As you can see in the report, there are quite a few severances. I know it says 122, now we're at 132 severances. Usually we're at about 40 or 50 for this time of year, so there's quite a lot of volume. This permit system will help us create more efficiencies and get through some of that backlog. And another benefit is that not only is it compatible with two of our municipalities, it also is significantly cheaper than some of the other vendors we looked at. So we're recommending that council authorize the agreement.
Okay, thank you very much for your report, Ms. Young. I can speak to my council in South Glengarry. Staff have said that this software is invaluable, and it's definitely helping speed up the process. It's digitizing, and it's certainly we're seeing a huge reduction in paper. So I'll open it up to comments of council members. Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Moving on to consent agenda. Madam Clerk.
It's moved by Councillor Gardner, seconded by Councillor Laundrie, that all items listed under the consent agenda section of the agenda be approved as recommended.
All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to number 10, boards and committees. I basically will start from the top of the list and ask each respective member to give a quick report. So starting at the top, the Joint Liaison Committee, Councillor McDonald, could I ask you for a report? You're on mute, sir. That's a first.
Sorry, we have not had a meeting. We have one upcoming, I believe.
Okay, thank you very much for your report. The Library Board, could I ask either Councillor Landry or Councillor Fraser? Councillor Landry?
I can speak to that. No, we had pushed up our meeting that we will be having on this coming Thursday.
Thank you very much for that report. Police Services Board, Councillor Wirt or McGillis. I don't see Councillor Wirt, or you're on mute, Councillor Wirt. Still can't hear you. Councillor McGillis, did you want to give a quick update? Sorry about that, Councillor Wirt.
Oh, thank you. We went over, quite a few different things. A lot of the stuff was, about the, the things that we talked about during our task force, what was already mentioned. Ben had brought up something that was interesting, having 3 signs actually stolen, the radar signs that the counties and municipalities have. You put them up. Ben, did you want to talk to that first?
Sorry, I double clicked myself. Yeah, no, it seems to be that there's an interest in those signs for whatever reason. So we're working with the OPP to kind of make sure that's documented, and hopefully we can stop it from happening in the future.
Thank you very much. Was there anything else, Councillor McGillis?
Does Councillor Wirt have his mic going now?
I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
I asked if Councillor Wirt, he was trying to speak earlier.
Yeah, I believe you're off mute, Councillor Wirt.
Through you, Mr. Warden, my apologies. I guess the only thing I would like to add is we also got a report in regards to the closure of the Smith Falls facility, and the assurances that it's part of their ongoing process for increased efficiencies, and that they're working with staff to minimize the impact. So we'll watch that closely, but it's certainly being driven by those motives. So thank you.
Thank you very much for that report. Eastern Ontario Health Unit, Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Acting Warden. We did have a meeting last month. However, all of the information that we were given, because as you all know, it changes practically on a daily basis. So all the notes that I took will be old news. So basically, the one thing that the health unit is currently trying to do is to bring back some of their standard programs that they run and that were sort of put on pause during COVID. So there is an effort to bring back, I believe it's called Healthy Baby, Healthy Children, programs like that. So that's good news that some of that stuff is normalizing, because those are important programs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That certainly is good news that we're getting back to normal somewhat. Glenstone Lodge, Councillor Bivalds, would you give a quick update, please? You're on mute.
Sorry about that, Acting Warden. Thank you. We did have a meeting last Thursday. We did go through the recommendations from the task force, and we had discussion on that. We also continued on with the challenge of finding positions to fill the PSW need in the Glenstone Dunn Lodge, and of course all others. And we're continuing on to deal with the accreditation that we haven't had an update on recently. Our occupancy is below standards, but we are being forgiven concerning the challenge with COVID. And as of right now, we are not in outbreak, and things are going fairly well at the lodge, all things considered. You can add anything you want, Acting Warden. You were there too.
No, you did a great job. Thank you for that thorough report. Moving on to Cornwall and Area Housing, Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thank you, Acting Warden. Nothing really to report other than the fact that we do have a meeting on Wednesday, and the board will be moving forward with the amalgamation process with the City of Cornwall. So I imagine we'll be updated Wednesday as to where we are and how we're doing.
Great, thank you for that. Great, thank you for that update. Moving on to the St. Lawrence River Institute, Councillor Gardner.
Thanks, Acting Warden. I actually had a conflict and was unable to attend, but I did look at the agenda and it was pretty standard. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Raisin River South Nation Source Water Protection, Councillor Williams.
Nothing to report.
Thank you. Municipal Advisory Algonquin Land Claim, Councillor Fraser.
Nothing to report.
Okay, thank you very much. Eastern Ontario Agri-Food Network, Councillor Williams.
Yes, we had our annual general meeting last week, and 3 new board members were appointed, so there's now a full complement on that board. The executive director, Tom Manley, is very busy with the programming for the organization, and 2 new farmers markets have been established. One in Cornwall at the waterfront, and then the other one is in Castleman. Other programming is online food ordering, local food, which is a program that the organization has just started. And it's also working with the Apples and Arts Tour that's going to be coming up, and working very closely, which is good news. I've been looking for this to make sure that the Agri-Food Network is working closely with the economic development and tourism departments of SDG, Cornwall, and Prescott and Russell, which appears to be happening. So that's very good news, because we need that. We need that cooperation and avoid duplication. So, so far so good. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you for that detailed report. Exciting times in the agri-food sector. And back to you for the final Regional Emergency Response Council. Councillor Williams.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Acting Warden. Yeah, the Regional Emergency Response Council is not nearly as active as it was over the last year. It is currently undertaking one more, what do you call it, food hamper project, received COVID funding for that. And that is actually, I believe that started yesterday. They are using the Old Home Hardware location in Cornwall that weren't able to use any of the municipal facilities because, of course, of vaccinations. So that facility is being rented to put together some 1,500 hampers, which are then being delivered through all of the social service agencies across Cornwall and SDG. It's a great project. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much for your detailed report, Councillor Williams. Are there any questions of council members on any of the reports that were given? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 11, key information, corporate services, acting warden position. Madam Clerk.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Acting Warden. The key information report in front of you today just lays out information regarding the acting warden position here at SDNG. It has some various options moving forward. Council can choose to stay with the warden's designate listing and proceed with that for the remainder of the warden's term until December 2021, or direct staff to proceed with an alternate direction. It's totally in council's hands now, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Okay, I'm sure this will be a robust discussion. I'm going to start with Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Acting Warden. Yes, I believe that we should be holding an election for the remainder of the term. I think it's important to have some continuity. We are still in a pandemic, and I think having a steady hand at the helm is important at this point. We still do have a lot of important items going on. We deal with the city of Cornwall, and I think going with an acting warden would be detrimental to the corporation. Who do we call this week? Who's the warden? So I thoroughly disagree with going with just a warden of the month. I think there's still 5.5 months left in this term. So I think it's important that we have one person leading the municipality. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments, Councillor Byveld.
Thank you, Acting Warden, and I will certainly echo Councillor McDonald's concern for the corporation. Having a steady person at the helm as warden of the county's SDG shows that we're unified and going forward. We also have to deal with the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus, and having some continuity there certainly helps us and certainly helps the Wardens Caucus going forward, along with EORN and anything else that the warden is would be currently involved in. And this is no disrespect to the acting wardens that are on the list. They all certainly are worthy of what being an acting warden or being even elected as warden. However, some history on the current procedure bylaw that was constructed in 2012, been concerned of putting a two-term warden in. The acting warden position, as much as it's defined and as it is, and as the clerk said, we could use that person in respect as acting warden going forward. The intent at that time was that that person would be subject to the current warden's challenges of being at events or what like, and it was more an event support than it was for a committee support. No continuity certainly doesn't bode well for us or any other county. We're in a challenging situation, but as Councillor McDonald said, a steady person at the till will can lead the counties for the next 5 months, and at that time, you know, we will have another election in the next term, and whoever is warden to be determined in October, November this year will certainly have the support of council, but we need to get to there. And going on a rotation we are now is certainly not going to bode well for the counties. That we need the strength there to move forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Byveld. Councillor Smith, then Councillor McGillis.
Thank you, Acting Warden. I think you're going to find out after talking to most of the councillors that they're going to be in agreement that we need to have a warden election. And but the question is being, should we have an election to have a warden to carry us through the rest of this year, or to carry us through the rest of this year and on to the following year? Is it a good idea to just have one for the next 5 months, or carry it through? We've had one now for a year and a half, and so I don't know. I guess the question would be whether to have another election in October or for the following last term of this term of council.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments, Councillor Smith. Councillor McGillis.
Mr. Warden, acting warden.
Councillor McGillis, I have a hard time hearing you. I don't know if anybody else cannot hear you, but it's very hard. I'm sorry.
Let me check here. I'll see. I have my volume all the way up. Okay, I don't know why you can't hear me.
Now you're better now.
I'm just yelling. I also want to echo Councillor McDonald and Councillor Byveld's sentiments in terms of that we should hold an election now, and we hold another one in the fall, because, and it was mentioned again, just to echo their sentiments, is the continuity. It's easier for staff too as well to work with one warden as opposed to having every different warden every monthly. And again, no disrespect to you, Mr. Warden, you're doing a great job, as far as I'm concerned. And going to the two-term warden had never made any difference at the Eastern Ontario Caucus, Wardens Caucus, going to 2 terms for one warden for the 2 years in a row. I mean, so I would like to see an election in the fall, as I said, and I like even to go back to the rotation instead of all this behind-the-scene political things that are going on, and it'd make a lot more smoother transition for the warden. Every councillor should have an opportunity to run for warden, as opposed to always trying to get in there from behind the scenes and vote for me, vote for me. I think it's important that everyone gets an opportunity one time. I know there's only 4 different years that one can be warden, and there's 12 councillors, but I think we should go back to Stormont, Dundas, Glengarry, or whatever rotation they want to do. I think we should be talking about that again. As Councillor Armstrong said, it worked for 100 years before. Why wouldn't it work now and continue to work well? So that's just some of my comments I'd like to make. So that's I think that's how we should move forward and do it in a very efficient way. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments, Councillor McGillis. Councillor Gardner.
Thanks, Acting Warden. I, as somebody who would be on that list to have the opportunity, I think that Councillor Warden has shown how a steady hand can be at the control of a newbie, somebody that hasn't been warden before. However, I agree with Councillor McDonald and Councillor Byvelds and everybody else that's spoken to this. I think we are wrapping up a pandemic that has been an incredibly difficult 2 years. I think that we have some unprecedented issues that we've dealt with this council, and I do believe a steady hand and the same person for the next 5.5 months would be vitally important. I think it would be nice to move on and come out of the pandemic and other challenges that we've had with some a constant face. However, I will speak to the fact that times are changing, and I do think that we need to have some communication at around this table about what the warden does and what some of the conversations and stuff. So if this situation ever arises again, and we have a situation where we have to put somebody that potentially hasn't been warden before in the seat, it would be nice for the rest of us to have some additional information to kind of navigate that. So I would just add that as a bit of constructive criticism. But I do believe that, and it's no offense, I agree with Councillor McGillis. I think that everybody on that list would have no problem navigating this and running a meeting and doing all that. But for staff and for the Warden's Caucus and for other things, getting ourselves out of the pandemic, I do believe we need a clear leader that will add that consistency for the rest of the year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Fraser.
Thank you, Acting Warden. And listening to the comments and listening to the questions and the phone conversations that have gone on for the last number of weeks, I think to revert back to what was, and my apologies for not knowing the history of what was, if there was a rotational warden and a rotational deputy warden, if it was to follow either a municipality or the counties in a circuit, it would establish that there would be consistency. There would be an understanding that if someone was to unfortunately not be able to serve out their term at the head of the table, then the deputy would have to step up, and that would be the expectation. I do firmly believe, as this list shows and has been commented on by Councillor Gardner, we're all capable of managing the head of the table. Do I think it's right that we rotate on a monthly basis? I think this is more of this rotation is more to allow double bookings to take place for events or for the one-offs where I'm not able to attend a meeting for something that immediately popped up without the head of the table, the call of the chair to reschedule a meeting, which is to the call of the chair. So I think back to the thoughts expressed with Councillor Gardner by Councillor McGillis that the way it was done previously with the rotation, it allows for fair representation at the county, at the head of the SDG County Council for all through time, all municipalities be represented, and to have that opportunity. As for the time being, for the 5 months, yeah, we need to have someone there. I don't want to say consistency so much. We're all capable. We've all been elected to represent our municipalities. We all do a good job, I'm sure. But to finish off the year, I think we do have to have someone sit for the balance of. Thank you, Mr. Warden.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments, Councillor Fraser. Councillor Wirt.
Through you, Mr. Warden, I think there's two things here that we're looking at. One's re-examining the process that we use for selecting warden, and one's the immediate challenge we have. So I would like to suggest that if there's appetite, that CAO Simpson bring a report towards the end of the calendar year as to what's brought us to the protocols we use today. But really, the decision that's imminent right now is how we handle the vacancy that we've got. And I firmly support Jamie and Steve that we certainly have to have a solid hand here. And the quicker we get that, I think the better it's going to be for all of us. So, and no disrespect, Lyle, I think you've done a great job here, but it's the optics, I think, that we want to make sure that we're solid on. Thank you.
Well, I've certainly had the most time being the warden, a warden, I should say, pardon me. And as the designate warden, it's clear that council wants a warden to be installed as soon as possible. So I think it would be incumbent upon us to line up a special meeting for that specific purpose. And I also agree with Councillor Wirt in the sense that let's deal with the issue. The imminent issue at hand is that we need to fill this position. While I've enjoyed it for this meeting, it's clear that we want someone in there that will be able to work with staff and represent the counties from now until the election in the fall. So if we could pick a date in the next couple of days, Madam Clerk, maybe you could send out a poll or something.
Sure, through you, Mr. Acting Warden. The majority is clear. We will hold an election for an interim warden, I believe, to serve until a successor is appointed in December of 2021. I have verified with health and safety staff here, Catherine Beeler, that we can be in person. We can meet in person for this election process so that we can administer the secret ballot. That's fine. We'll wear masks and be distanced and whatnot. So I can have a resolution ready for you today. If we'd like to set a date right here and now, that would be great.
Yeah, I think that would be in our best interest as a council and as an organization, so that the public knows that we are committed to moving on, and we're going to be having a new warden very, very imminently. So does anybody have any proposed dates? Councillor Byvelds? You're on mute.
Sorry about that. Thanks, Acting Warden. Before I speak to the date, Councillor Wirt did bring up and Councillor Fraser brought up the possibility of re-examining the procedural bylaw. In 2012, when we did so, that current warden at the time, which was Warden McLeod, myself as past warden, CO Simpson, and clerk at the time, Thompson, were a committee that went and examining that. I think it's time that we do look at it. We did change some significant things. We took the deputy warden out. We took the rotation out of, and to be honest, the rotation has never, ever been in a procedure bylaw. It just was assumed. If council wants to change it, and I think council has an opportunity now that we should at least examine it and get it set up for, if not our last year in office, but certainly for the next term of council, that we set what we believe is the proper way of looking at electing wardens, how to have a deputy warden if necessary, and going forward and doing what like that. Certainly look at other opportunity or other best practices out there from other upper tier municipalities, but there were reasons we did change it at that time. Not saying they're right or wrong, but we've gone through almost 10 years, and a re-examine is never a bad thing. And I think there certainly needs to be a group of councillors and staff to come up with that solution, bring it to county council, and then take their suggestions. You know, it'll be a back and forth, no doubt about it. But in the end, I think we'll have a better document going forward. So that's my 2 cents on that. Procedure bylaw, in my opinion, is extremely important to counties or any municipality. It is the way we run the show. And if we want to change the show, that's our opportunity. As for dates, the only date I can't do it is this Wednesday of this week, and Deputy Mayor Gardner being Councillor Gardner being in the same position because we have an event down in South Dundas in the morning. Afternoon will be all right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for those comments. I'm going to go to CAO Simpson, then Councillor McGillis, Councillor Armstrong, Councillor McDonald, then Councillor Gardner.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, no, I just want to echo what Councillor Byveld said. He beat me to it. I was going to suggest if council wants to take a look at it, in my view, the best way to do it is to have a working group composed of some elected officials who would be appointed by council, myself and the clerk, which is what we did last time, and to do that work to bring forward recommendations to council. So I can have a report in your July agenda around that, and then council can give direction in terms of how they would like to proceed. But that would be my recommendation. And as well, the rotation that people are talking about, that was all done. That was done by agreement, as far as I know. I mean, I can't speak to procedural bylaws back in the day, but as far as I know, that was never codified or written down. It was just an understanding among council members. So, if we're going to bring something formal back, we'll have to have those discussions with the working group. Thank you, Mr. Warden.
Yep, thank you very much, Councillor McGillis.
I was just going to say thank you. Contrary to what our CEO was stating, there's only 3 options we have on the table, and right, going back to a committee and then come back with all these recommendations when we already know up front what the recommendations will be. I think we just at our meeting, whatever meeting that we decide on, what time frame it is going to be, sometime this week, I hope, come up just with a discussion in terms of have on the agenda what we're going to discuss. And so rather than having behind the scenes things that are going to be done and the recommendations brought forward, let's just bring them up right there at the meeting and then get it resolved and then have a vote on it. That's it. It's as simple as can be. That's what that's what I would recommend at this time.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments, Councillor McGillis. Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Warden. Just a couple of things. I agree with Councillor McGillis on that point. I think if you're going to do something as monumental, either way, in changing the way this council's future are run, I would think you want to have a full and honest discussion between all members. I don't think it should be splintered up, and I think if it was done that way in the past, I wouldn't have agreed with it, at least for my vote. I mean, some things like these need to be all inclusive, and they need to have everyone's input on it because we're all representing every township, and again, it's for posterity. So you need to have those voices. Those are the conversations, probably that are most important, that are held at the complete and committee of the whole level. And not to go too far back, but I do agree with what the majority said, just to make sure that everyone's spoken on this. I think again that it's important, and I'm not going to reiterate what everybody had to say. The one special request I would have of council, just for personal circumstances, is unfortunately I try to do whatever I can to make these special meetings, but at this current circumstance, some of you know, most of you probably don't, but I only have 8 days of work left because our company has been dissolved, and it is virtually impossible and does affect our severance pay and our standing in our personal situations if we are to take unscheduled time off. So I would request it's not to make it go on forever, but if we don't want to wait, and I don't think we should wait until June the 30th, but I would request that we could either do this after 6 o'clock in the evening, or to have this discussion, and or on the weekends. I mean, anytime available. I know it's a bit difficult for people, but it is a unique circumstance for me in this particular situation. It's not lack of taking a holiday. The company is literally being dissolved, so my hands are tied on that. So I would put that forward to consideration. Otherwise, I would send a proxy. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments, Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. I just, I support what Councillor Armstrong is there. I think everyone should be there. Having said that, I'm finally going away for a couple of days and it falls on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday this week. So I could come back for Friday afternoon, but I think if it's a close vote or whatever, I think all votes should be there, or I guess I could do it by proxy, but or over the phone, I guess. But I was thinking if we could do it the next Monday evening, maybe, but just my thoughts.
I believe certain councils have their meetings on Monday. I think North Glengarry. Is your meeting next Monday?
Yes, it is. Yeah. So yeah, some other time than Wednesday, Thursday, Friday day.
We could do it Monday at 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. whatever.
Monday at 6. Would it be? Would you be able to be in Cornwall physically and then get ready for your meeting at 7 for a physical vote, or would we be going?
So, Councillor Armstrong, my question is, what time are you available next Monday? What's the earliest?
Well, it was 6 o'clock for me to get into Cornwall would probably be pushing it. I mean, it is very hit and miss because I drive tractor trailer. Generally, I would be available and be able to make it by 6:30 at the latest. But that would be the day that I would get a flat tire or something, to make it that tight.
Why don't we have a meeting sometime this week, next week, in the middle of the week? We don't have to.
Just 1 second, Councillor Miguel, please. Councillor Gardner, you had your hand up.
I was just going to add, I don't have my calendar in front of me, but we have South Dundas Council next Monday. So
what about tomorrow night after 6 p.m.?
Yeah, I could probably.
Yes.
Sorry, but North Dundas we have our council meeting.
Oh.
Any evening after 7 o'clock. I mean, it's, again, it's a difficult time, but
my question to Kimberly is, well, I understand the importance of this meeting, but it's getting very difficult to try and get people in at the same time. Could we not do it virtually and call in our votes with both you and Tim in the room taking the call-in vote as opposed to us writing it on a ballot?
Through you, yeah, we can suspend the rules of procedure. I have that prepared in the resolution too, and we can. Tim, do you think we can work that out with Mike as well, or?
Sure, yeah, as long as it's secure, for sure, as the clerk said, we could suspend the rules of procedure and come up with something that would work for members of council.
I personally think it's imperative that we make this decision as soon as possible. So I think that would be good if that is possible. I'll go to Councillor Byvelds and I'll wrap it up at that point. Councillor Byvelds.
Thank you, Acting Warden. I agree fully with Councillor McDonald's suggestion. I'm comfortable, and I hope the rest of the council is comfortable with being virtual, but phoning it in on whatever line we have, and just telling the clerk, the CAO, and if they want a third person there for validation. I think that's the easiest. It'll save a lot of hassle. Sure, it'd be great if we all got together, but it's pretty apparent that this is going to be a challenge going forward. And I certainly want is all county council members being available at the best of their ability. And an evening meeting for Councillor Armstrong is important. If it's important for someone else, I think in the end, we all have to have a say in this, and it's the best way going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so back to you, Madam Clerk. I'm kind of looking for direction here. Do we ask for members, somebody interested at this point, or will you send out communication to council? I'm looking for your direction.
Tim, did you want to say something, or do you want me to take a stab at it?
You can go. I can go ahead. You can go ahead.
I was just thinking through you, Mr. Acting Warden, a simple election process where nominations are put on the floor, moved and seconded, and then we proceed. Nominations are closed. We proceed with everyone voting, and then it's announced, and the interim warden would then do their oath, and the meeting would be adjourned. A simple process, if that works for council.
That works for me. Can I get a thumbs up if that's okay with the majority of council? And that is okay for council. So we will schedule this meeting for tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. Is that okay with everyone? 6?
No, it's Municipal Council North Dundas, 6:30. I believe we have our public meeting starting at 6:30. So tomorrow evening at 6:30 does not work either.
Does Wednesday evening work?
Wednesday evening's good.
Does that work?
We have our meeting, Mr. Warden,
What time does your meeting start at, Councillor McGillis?
5 o'clock.
Can we do 5:30 tomorrow night?
Theirs starts at 5:30 at 5 o'clock. He just said.
Tomorrow night.
5:30 tomorrow night, which is North Dundas starts at 6:30.
5:30. If I may jump in, it's my deputy mayor, the councillors. 5:30 is too early. You can't either without surety. We can't even get meetings in North Dundas at 5:30 with a councillor's schedule. So it's got to be 6 p.m. maybe Friday.
Madam Clerk, may I ask a question? We are all present at this exact moment in time. I would ask that we consider doing this now, and like I can finish the meeting as the acting warden, and then the warden, can we do it now? Is it against our procedural bylaws? I have everyone looking at me right now.
Council can, through you, I believe, Tim, cut me off if I'm wrong. Council could suspend the rules of procedure and move on with this if they'd like.
I think the question is right in front of us, but I will just do a thumbs up. Are members of council in favor of getting this over with now so that we can continue on the business with stability? I got 2, 3. It's the majority is in favor. So
through you, I think Tim needs to speak.
I'm just wondering how we're going to handle the secret ballot. Are members going to phone us?
We will phone it in.
Okay.
Yeah. So could we? So just a question for procedural purposes. Could we do this at the last part of the meeting? So I'll continue on. I've got the agenda. I worked hard to prepare for this. and then
it shows
at the end of the meeting, then we will know who our warden, our newly appointed warden will be for the next meeting.
Sure.
Councillor Gardner had her hand up.
No, I was just going to say, if we, for the voting purposes too, maybe calling might get cumbersome. It might be a text situation. Like, would that be better? Just if we text or vote in and then they have it, or the call in? I was just a thought. I was just thinking of the texting.
I prefer calling.
Okay.
There's no digital copy, and then you're
okay.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yep. Okay, so that being said, Madam Clerk, so we will just defer this to the end of the meeting.
Yeah, through you, I'd like to pass a motion to suspend the rules to proceed, add this item and proceed with it at the end of the meeting. It reads that council suspend the rules of procedure and direct staff to administer an election for an interim warden to serve until a successor is sworn in December 2021 at the current meeting today, June 21st, 2021. I need a mover and seconder first.
Okay, moved by Councillor Gardner, seconded by Councillor Byvelds. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you all very much. I think this is a good fit for everyone. Okay, so we were at.
We have a question here.
Pardon me. Yeah, Councillor Wirt, my apologies.
Sorry, Lyle. Sorry, through you, Mr. Warden. I think that it's important that Tim and Kimberly take their time while we're proceeding with the rest of the meeting to make sure that we're actually allowed to do what we're doing here, okay? I fully support getting this decision done, but let's be really objective that we're not stepping into something we don't want to step into. So.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
Go ahead, CEO Simpson.
Yeah, just a couple of comments. I think just to answer Councillor Ward, I think it's council's document, your rules of procedure. So I think you have full authority to change them or waive them or do whatever. So I don't really have any concerns on that in terms of moving, if you want to move forward today. The other thing, I just around the calling in, I think maybe Kimberly and I would call you. That way it would go quicker rather than everybody trying to call in once. We'll call you. You can tell us how you want to vote and we're done. Does that sound reasonable?
I do like that. Everybody
Okay.
has a thumbs up. Councillor McGillis, you had a comment?
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Yeah, I just, I saw that Jim had his, or Councillor Ward had his hand up. I just want to make sure you got his voice in. I just wanted to say that we did talk about something else other than just the vote today. So maybe at the next meeting, we were talking about possibly changing the procedural bylaw in terms of the rotation. So we can discuss that next meeting if that's okay, and put that on the agenda, because that was going to be part and parcel of the conversation if we're going to meet face to face, right? So now we're not, so we can look at it another time. The next meeting possibly, okay?
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, all right. So that being said, we will continue on with the meeting, and Madam Clerk will speak to how we will proceed once we get the rest of the items on the list going forward. And I really appreciate council's involvement in that discussion. It's a bit tricky, but we have a job to do. So moving on to item 11B, transportation services, signed bylaw deferral.
Thank you. So for council's information, we had intended to bring forward the revised sign bylaw based on what we had looked at our last meeting. I've provided and we received a copy of a correspondence from Gowling, which is a legal firm out of Ottawa, with respect to a owner of a digital sign who had some concerns, and so. Therefore, just to be prudent, we've recommended we're going to defer it, go through that letter and prepare a response. The other thing too that this actually provides us the opportunity to, or provides council the opportunity to do, is here's I guess allow me to convey some of the comments we did receive from other members of the public. We had 4 comments received, 3 were from members of the public. Very briefly, I have in my report what a summary of their issues were, but really it was along the lines of digital signs not being allowed in the sightline of residential homes, only permitted in commercial areas, to change the time that these signs turn off, just some concerns with respect to administration and enforcement and how that's going to be done. Another way to look at, or was recommended another way to look at it, was only allowing the permit for digital signs to be valid for 1 year, and then they have to renew, and the consideration for renewal is based on how many complaints are received, and then obviously like removal of any signs that are considered a nuisance. So I guess I just leave that with council. If there's some recommended changes to the bylaw, I'm happy to kind of make some amendments for a future date. And the other question I want to pose to council is, we obviously want to review and respond, but I also recognize this might be something that council wants to prioritize, and if there is a special meeting at some point in the near future, we can have that prepared for then, or rather wait till the July meeting to bring some more information and whatnot forward. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Hahn. Councillor McDonald.
Okay, thank you, Ben, for your report, and thank you, Mr. Warden. First off, I love when we get a letter that someone is going to sue us. We get these on a weekly basis at the municipality of people threatening us and they're going to sue us. And really, we should give no credibility to that. We should be prudent, have our lawyers look at it. But in the end, for these people, I don't think suing the taxpayers of SDG is a prudent business plan. And if this type of signage is not appropriate for the area, we should move forward and get it done. I mean, again, we can't be held hostage by people that keep telling us they're going to sue us. I get tired of this kind of tactic, and it literally pisses me off. So I hope we can move forward sooner rather than later on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments, Councillor McDonald. Councillor Laundrie, Councillor Fraser, then Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Acting Warden. Ben, so I can see where we're looking at a deferral, which could, well, we'll obviously push it at least a month, if not more. My only concern is they had conditions put in that I believe were set to them to abide by, and they kind of changed their minds, and now they're reneging on their requirements. So is there something, again, if this goes on for a couple of months, are we enforcing what was established as far as them meeting the timelines and stuff of shutting off the sign, or dealing with what we had kind of proposed as far as conditions?
Well, I guess I just want to remind council that this is a signage bylaw that's intended to be for all digital signs across SDG. So it's not directed at any particular sign. But that being said, the current bylaw as we have it, and in our view, any digital sign that's operating should be operating in accordance with that bylaw. For the circumstance of the business owner that has provided the letter to us, they disagree. They have a fundamental difference of opinion on that. We've strengthened the provisions of the draft bylaw to try and make it a little bit more, I would suggest, we're trying to beef that part of it up just to make sure it's ultra clear what the expectations are. But again, this isn't directed at one business in particular. And so I guess to specifically answer your question with relation to the operation of the one sign, that we're still, we have a fundamental difference in terms of what the expectations are out there.
Point taken. Thanks, Ben.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Fraser, and then Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I understand Councillor McDonald's feelings, and I support them 100%. We should not be governed by threat of being sued. We know what is right. I believe we know what's right. This sign, and I understand, Mr. Hahn, that it's not strictly about this sign. I know it's not strictly about this sign, but this sign is an example of what we don't want in our communities, what we don't want affecting our residents. We strive to make our communities better. We strive to make our communities places where people want to stay, want to be comfortable, want to enjoy their time. This is signs such as this has added a level of discomfort, and that discomfort has been well expressed, that it's been expressed across SDG. I'm sure we've all had an opportunity to understand the discomfort. I don't think we should be governed by fear of threat. We know what's right, and I think we should move ahead with this.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments, Councillor Fraser. Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. No, I just echoing Councillor Fraser and Councillor McDonald. Threats are to paraphrase Councillor McDonald, they're just an ill-conceived offense, and I don't want to delay this too long. And to Councillor DeHaan's, or to Mr. DeHaan's point, this is for every sign, and I do think that it is fair to every sign, and the restrictions put in there are perfectly acceptable to our side of North Dundas, at least for any signs that would go up. I think it's well written, and I don't know. I mean, whatever we can do to not delay it. To that specific sign, it is horrendous, and they're not complying to our restrictions, as Councillor Landry said, and I don't know if it's a fundamental disagreement. I suppose on one level it is, but it's also a flaunting of disregard for a law that's in place. So we should perhaps be pursuing that in a very aggressive manner as well, while we deal with something fair for all the signs that would exist and will exist in the future. So the sooner the better, in my opinion.
Thank you very much. CEO Simpson, did you have your hand up? No? Okay, Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Acting Warden. I agree that we mustn't subject our decision making with regards to threats. I do have a question, however, with regards to the grandfathering that was put in this latest bylaw that doesn't grandfather existing signs. I just want to ensure the legality of that.
Yeah, we've actually had a thorough and extensive legal review of the bylaw, so we feel very comfortable with the draft as proposed. And again, like we did receive the letter in question that's in the council package pretty late in the day on last week Thursday. So we just haven't had that opportunity to kind of go through it with a fine-tooth comb and be able to respond adequately to it. But again, I have confidence in what we've drafted, and I think we just need to obviously we have to always act prudently, knowing that these things are, we're representing tax dollars and taxpayers, and we've got to make sure we take the right steps as we move forward.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Councillor Byveld.
Thank you, Acting Warden. I don't disagree with all the county council on our path forward. We are kind of looking at one sign in particular, and the unfortunate part about it, yes, we do have an owner that seems intent on doing whatever, and the challenge with that, and as we've all seen in the correspondence we've had from nearby residents, it severely impacts their lives. And whether it's that sign or another sign anywhere in SDG, we want to make sure that we're fair to all those involved. Is it a nasty letter from a lawyer? It certainly is. Is it a big shot lawyer? It certainly is. It's still just a bunch of words that, I need that advice from the other side. And my preference in this is not advice in open council. I think this is something that we as council need to take legal advice in closed session, as much as we're not trying to hide from it, because we do have another open letter. But, it gives a proper discussion and a proper information to those on council without our legal advisor having to guard his words because of a court challenge. Because if it goes into court, they'll pull this video out or whatever video we're discussing in and use it as evidence. And I'd rather have a fair fight than an unfair fight. And I certainly support the current bylaw as written, or not the current one, the current draft one. However, I want to make sure that we have our I's dotted and T's crossed, and make sure that we are all comfortable in any kind of legal stance we take. It's the prudent way of running our corporation and making sure that what we think is right, as much as we do think it's right. I've seen judgments that you would swear as a council that there's no way we're going to lose, and then you lose and you wonder what the hell happened. And sorry, I apologize for the word I use, but let's do it right. I know that the residents in that area need to be supported. I'll support them 100%. Just want to make sure that we're doing it right with all the information that we need to do it right with. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments, Councillor Byveld. So with that all being said, I'll go to Councillor Fraser.
Thank you for your indulgence, Mr. Warden. When I look at what's in front of me, the 2.4C, and as a 2.4C, is that yes, failed to be turned off between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. In the wintertime, it's dark very early, and maybe I think maybe 10 p.m. is too generous. I think it should be quite a bit earlier, following regular business hours, or a prescribed time much earlier than 10 p.m. so as not to be so these digital lit signs aren't a disturbance to others throughout the early evening hours. 5 p.m. maybe. My thoughts, and I'm throwing that out there. If this is too early to discuss that, my apologies, but I don't want to see us move ahead on this and me ask for the indulgence to look at the 10 p.m.
Mr. DeHaan.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. The Part D is also trying to account for the fact that sunrise varies, Councillor Fraser. So that's kind of how we addressed the seasonal variability in sunlight. So we've said they've got that digital signs need to be dimmed between sunset and 10 p.m. and then after 10 p.m. shut off. So I'd suggest if council feels that 10 p.m. is too late of a time to be shut off, I'm happy to receive some kind of direction from council to amend that time to an earlier time. But I personally like the idea of kind of tying some dimming to sunset, and then after that have a firm shut off time. So that's my personal opinion, and from an administration point of view, it makes it a lot easier.
Subsequent, Councillor Fraser.
Thank you very much. And I appreciate your thoughts, Ben. That's sort of the information I need to have at hand. Thank you.
Okay, at this point, looking for some direction on how we're moving forward. Are we deferring this? Does council want a special meeting to discuss this? Or does council want to go ahead today? There's kind of mixed messages, and I'm kind of getting looking for direction from council. Are we deferring this to a date in future with the idea of having a special meeting to discuss? Councillor McDonald.
I just think, thank you, Mr. Warden. I just think we should have our check with our legal department and then come back at the next meeting and vote and discuss this wholesome and approve it or not approve it next meeting. That's my 2 cents.
Okay. Does everyone concur with what Councillor McDonald said? Thumbs up, thumbs up. And we have a majority. So, okay, thank you very much. So staff has direction to bring this back at the next meeting. Thank you very much for that robust discussion. The next item is item C, transportation services, forest donation. Mr. Dahan.
Thank you. Just a good news story, and I'll make it quick because I know we still have a lot ahead of us. We have been advised formally that the Gallagher family is interested in donating a small piece of their property that's, I guess, orphaned because of a municipal drain, but abuts one of our county forests. It was a field, but we can incorporate it into the forest. We really appreciate that opportunity and the recognition, and we look forward to working with them to finalize it.
Good, thank you very much. All righty. Is there any questions or comments on that last report? Seeing none, we're moving on to item number 12, motions and notices of motions.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Warden. I do have a motion here. It's moved by Councillor Williams. It will require a seconder. It reads that council waive the notice requirements for notices of motion for the following: that the Council of the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry hereby recognizes June 2021 as Pride Month throughout the county and acknowledges, supports, and celebrates equality, inclusion, and empowerment for every member of the LGBTQ community, and furthermore, that the pride flag be raised at the County Administration Building.
Thank you very much. I'll hand that over to you, Councillor Williams.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Acting Warden. My thoughts on this is that it's time. The people of SDG are open, fair, and inclusive in their consideration. And I do believe that acknowledging Pride Month at SDG Council is an important step forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those comments. So are there any other questions or comments from members of staff? Councillor Gardner.
I was just going to say, Mr. Acting Warden, that I would second that.
Thank you very much. As a member of the LGBTQ+ community, I hope that council will take this step forward and approving this motion. Are there any other comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you all very much. Item 13, petitions, there are none. Item 14, miscellaneous business. 14A, request from MP Duncan, resolution of support for the creation of a 3-digit 988 suicide hotline. Madam Clerk.
Through you, Mr. Acting Warden, I believe some of the local municipalities have put forward and passed these resolutions of support. So I'll read it just so that it gives further context and then ask for a mover and seconder. The resolution reads, whereas the federal government has passed a motion to adopt 988, a national 3-digit suicide and crisis hotline. And whereas the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic has increased the demand for suicide prevention services by 200%. And whereas existing suicide prevention hotlines require the user to remember a 10-digit number and go through directories or be placed on hold. And whereas in 2022, the United States will have in place a national 988 crisis hotline. And whereas the Council of the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry recognizes that it is a significant and important initiative to ensure critical barriers are removed to those in a crisis and seeking help. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry endorses this 988 crisis line initiative, and that staff be directed to send a letter indicating such support to the local MP, MPP, Federal Minister of Health, the CRTC, and local area municipalities to indicate our support.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. I think this is something that is incumbent of us to do through this pandemic. There's been a very, very huge rise in mental health issues. A lot of people have felt secluded, and I think this is something that would be a wonderful thing. Our council at South Glengarry and I believe South Stormont have already passed a resolution, and it's in your package. So I'll open it up to questions or comments of the floor. Councillor Gardner.
Thanks, Acting Warden. This is a vital piece of the puzzle. It is only one piece, but it is an important piece. And you're right, the mental health awareness has risen as people have felt isolated. I also have a thought that it was there all along. It's just people had more time to potentially focus on their concerns and issues. So South Dundas also passed this, and I strongly support this. I hope that it's, like I said, I think it's a piece of the puzzle because you can call the hotline, but then you need additional support afterwards. So I'm really hoping this is a good step. So followed up with resources, etc. So I would also move it if you need a mover.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Gardner. Are there any other questions of council? Seeing none, do we have a mover and a seconder?
We require a seconder.
Okay, seconded by Councillor Jaworski. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you very much, council. Okay, moving on to number 15, unfinished business summary. Madam Clerk, there's nothing, right? Okay, good. Sorry. Sorry. So at this time, it's item number 16, closed session. Madam Clerk.
It's moved by Councillor Byveld, seconded by Councillor Armstrong, that council proceed in camera pursuant to section 239 2F of the Municipal Act 2001. Advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. Official plan appeal.
All those in favor of the motion?